It's been a long week, right? Are you ready to wind down? Why not? It's time for the Wine Time Fridays podcast with Shelley and Phil. Neither are sommeliers, but both have a deep passion for life, each other, and of course, delicious wine. And now, here to talk about this week over a glass of wine is Shelley and Phil. It's wine time.
But really not a lot. And then we do partial malolactic fermentation, and then I lees stir the barrels every Friday. So you get a little bit of that luscious mouthfeel, sort of that thicker mouthfeel, but without a lot of oak flavor. So all neutral oak, with the exception of that 5 to 10% new oak, and that way you get that micro oxidation from the barrel staves. But just that kiss of new oak, just a touch.
So 5%.
Yeah, 5 to 10%. This vintage is 5%.
So talk through what that looks like. When you say 5% new oak, does that mean 5% of the juice goes into the new oak for how much time, or is it 5% of the time it's fermenting? How?
Yeah, just to give you a visual, we'll have 10 barrels and one of them will be a new barrel. And then every other year, as we grow the program, as we grow how much Chardonnay we're making, every other year we'll order one new barrel.
Okay.
Oh,
French oak.
okay.
French oak.
Gotcha.
And neutral is about how many years?
Oh gosh, I mean, it can keep going and going as long as you're taking good care of those barrels. But yeah, we'll work with anything from like 4 to 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so explain your labels and who does the artwork or the photography, maybe, because you had mentioned you don't like to put things on the front of your labels.
Yeah.
No text, and it's beautiful. But where did that come from?
Well, thank you. Yeah, so what we do for the labels is we have beautiful black and white photography of various locations of the American West, and then we don't put any text over it. And the reason being, much like my winemaking, I try to find a beautiful thing and then not cover it up, not mess it up, really stick with that minimalist approach, which is why it's the black and white photography as opposed to color photography. I feel like it's sometimes we have too much coming at us to appropriately absorb what's happening, and I like the minimalist aspect to the black and white photography. It sort of cleans it up a little bit so that we can really appreciate it in depth. So yeah, we work with a lot of different photographers. Actually, the guy for the Chardonnay here, a photographer named Mark Keever, is based out of Spokane. Most of our other photographers are from farther away. But yeah, and then all of the American West, which is just sort of a nod to the adventure that we're having, right? Like we're sort of out in this wild zone, and it's always been fascinating to me that people journeyed west for what, right? Like
What?
They didn't
What?
know.
They didn't know, yeah.
And I think that is that humans do this over and over again. This wasn't a one-off, right? Like
Right.
Throughout history, you have sort of these adventurers and journeying into the unknown, and that's so much of what the Walla Walla wine industry has been while I've been a part of it. Just sort of these risk takers, and then lastly, there's sort of a brutality to the photography. It's there's a harshness to it, and I feel like winemaking is like that. You're sort of dusty and dirty and it's exhausting, and people think of luxury wine as this luxury experience, and when you're drinking it, it is.
That's right.
But when you're making
blood,
it,
sweat, and tears that go into that. That's what we talked with Charlie a little bit about last week, which is the romance of drinking the wine. It's farming. It is, like you said, you're out there in the heat and dirt and getting your hands dirty. That's what farmers do. And that's what winemakers that are out in the vineyards, that they're going to do that, which is beautiful. That's a great thing. I actually named this title Making Beautiful Things at Brook Bull Cellars with winemaker Ashley Trout, because on your website, there was, we make beautiful things. Reminds me of a Grunger song. Remember Beautiful Things? And then we relentlessly pursue beauty, just beauty. That is like a driving force, seemingly, just by those two mentions on your website. That's kind of a driving force for you guys, seemingly.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, that's what we're doing. That's it.
I love that. I love that. I love the fact I cannot keep this microphone on me to save my life. So yeah, how did your name come to be?
Brook Bull Cellars, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, so like we talked about, there aren't a lot of women winemakers. We're about 14% of the industry, and then only 6% of women winemakers own their wineries. So when you whittle it down, it's a very tiny percentage of women winery owners. And I had started a different winery that I launched in 2006, sold it in 2010, stayed on as the winemaker for 5 more years, and that was called Flying Trout. My last name is Trout, and I was working in Argentina and Walla Walla. It was a very literal naming of a winery, actually. But these guys purchased it, and I didn't want to step on their toes with the naming of the next wine. But I think it's important for women to get their name on things. Men would.
Yeah.
And so I just, for the future generations, want ladies to know, like, own it, do it, say it, be it, right? Without shame. So Brook trout and bull trout are 2 kinds of trout. So it's just sort of a play on still getting my name on there while being respectful of some of the other
Sure. One of our sponsors for this episode is Naked Wines, and almost probably 95% of their wines are the winemaker's name on the label.
Yeah.
And they have a lot of women winemakers, which is fabulous. We love that. But yes, get the name out there. Don't be, sometimes it's looked down upon when women like go out and it's like, don't be so, that's not ladylike. Okay, screw you. We're blazing trails, and sometimes you have to do it with strength. And I love that.
Well, and I mean, I even catch myself. I am just such an uber feminist, and still my graphic designer, who is one of my favorite people in the whole world, this guy Joe Chauncey out of Seattle, he stuck my signature on the back. And I said, no, I'm too embarrassed. I can't do it. And Joe and I had worked together enough by this point, and he just wrote back and he said, too bad, so sad, we're doing it. Your signature's going on that thing. And I was like, oh my God.
You didn't want it on at all.
I did not.
I thought you were like, hell, put it on the front, not the back.
No, I didn't want it on there anywhere. It just seemed so sort of hoity-toity, I don't know, like bravado, right? And Joe was like, nope, we're doing it. And so it's good to have people around you that say, like, no, let's push it a little bit further. Let's
give you that little nudge.
Some nudges.
Yeah, I get it, but it is good to have people around you that will kind of take that torch for you, so you don't have to, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Shall you have something?
Nope, I'm just looking at my notes. I'm
Okay.
wondering how my voice is gonna ask.
Well, let's take a quick break. I'm gonna come back. We're gonna start going to red wine. Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Shelley and Phil and Ashley Trout of Brook Bull Cellars out of Walla Walla, Washington, W2. I always like calling it W2. Walla Walla,
It's
W2.
W3.
Well, I think you say Walla
Walla
Walla,
Walla.
Washington. Okay.
Walla Walla Walla.
Walla Walla. Okay, this has really gotten out of control. We have just tasted through a non-vintage LaMarca Prosecco, which those of you on YouTube watching did not see, so sorry about that. But a 2022 100% Chardonnay, $32 price point at the winery. Close on that?
Yeah.
Really nice.
Okay, beautiful.
So this would be a Chardonnay that a lot of people who say, I don't like Chardonnays.
Oh yeah.
They would love this because they're like, I hate all that oat.
Yeah, this is super balanced. That's the first thing that I got out of that glass. By the way, we drank this not really chilled, which we could get that profile out of it so much easier. It's really the way I think wine should be drank, a little warmer on the colds, a little cooler on the reds, right? Because sometimes those reds can be too warm, and actually, room temperature is too warm. So what?
Remember that place we went and they had their reds right by the heater?
We're not gonna
won't
say,
mention
we
it.
won't mention the restaurant here in town.
It's like hot cider.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, we got it downstairs next to the furnace.
Mhm.
Okay, then. Well, glad you sell wine that way. So you, Ashley, had a semi-young start in the wine business.
I did,
And we're not talking 25, 30 years old. You were like,
18,
yeah,
yeah.
tell
Yeah.
us about that. I'm kind of just intrigued.
Yeah.
18 years old.
It was just right place, right time. I grew up in Washington, DC with smatterings of LA. And so I understood cities and I wanted to see the Wild West. And long story short, I went to college. I went to Whitman College, which is in Walla Walla for those reasons and some others. And I thought, when in Rome, whatever's going on here, I'm only going to be here for 4 years. Let's do it. And that was wine. It wasn't a lot of wine because there were only about 9 or 10 wineries that existed at all in Walla Walla in 99, September of 99.
18 years old is still, even to this day, against the law to drink alcohol.
Yeah, but it's the perfect age to go learn how to drive a forklift or deliver boxes to UPS down the road, or clean up a tasting room, or mix up bins of wine late at night, or read a thermometer. I mean, 18-year-olds are practically invaluable for an industry that was growing as quickly as the wine industry was in Walla Walla at that time. And I think you still to this day find a disproportionate number of winemakers in Walla Walla that were kind of born between 75 and 83, because we were the 20-year-olds exactly in the moment when the industry needed 20-year-olds. You're going to show up at midnight, you're going to show up on a Saturday, you're going to learn how to do something you've never done before, because when you're 18, you've never done anything before.
Right.
So there's no ego about that's not who I am. Anything is who you are at that point. You just do it.
You're just a
You're
sponge,
just a
soaking it up.
sponge,
Yeah.
totally. Yeah, there's no ego, there's no fear. And you can just go and go and go and go. You don't care if you're dusty and dirty, right? So it actually is not that surprising that it was that magical fit, but it was a magical fit.
And then you spent a decade in Mendoza.
I did 8 harvests down in Mendoza, Argentina. So I was living in the United States, but I would go down for harvest.
Ah, okay.
That's a long commute.
It was great. I have no complaints, none whatsoever.
So how
So
many weeks or days would you be down there?
It just varied. Certainly it got a little bit shorter when we had toddlers. Once we had kids, and I did not wind up taking any toddlers down to Argentina with me, but I was 8.5 months pregnant with my second child, my last vintage down there. So those did affect how long I was able to sort of sneak through a harvest down there.
yeah, I guess so. And I mean,
And was it always with the same winemaker down there, or did you go in between different wineries?
Yeah, so I either worked and or interned at quite a few different wineries, and then launched Flying Trout in order to be able to sort of keep going and make it worthwhile. So a little bit of everything. Yeah.
well, we have 3. Well, actually, I have 4 red wine glasses on this table, but we have 3 of them that are empty. And so I believe this is the Silent Ode.
This is the Silent Ode.
Beautiful.
Yep.
Super excited about this one. I'm excited for the whole lineup. But Shelley knows why I'm excited about this.
Yeah, so the Silent Ode year after year is the blend does vary, the percentages do vary, but the theme on it really is what happens when you let the redheaded stepchildren of the Bordeaux world shine, right?
Heck
On their
yeah.
own.
Yeah.
Give
Heck yeah.
sort of Cabernet a backseat and give all those other
Go
guys
to the other
ability
side of the room.
Yeah, you let all the funkies sort of shine a little bit, and it's just sort of spicier. It's a little bit more brooding and menacing in a way that I find totally fascinating. It's darker and richer, but
I get cucumber on the nose. Which is not dark and brooding, but that's funny.
yeah.
Hashtag Cheersing, because this has got a really nice nose. It's started to open up a bit.
Yeah, so some fun spice from the Camp Franc and the Petit Verdot especially, and then really sort of luscious mouthfeel from the Malbec. So it's fun to take something that is generally sort of serious and borderlining somber, if you will, and classic and classy, but take all those same things and spin it into something totally different, much more adventurous.
This has
It's
got
really nice, really luscious.
very great word, luscious. It's got a really nice finish way back on my tongue. I love that. It's a 2020, the Silent Ode.
It could still lie down a few more.
Oh, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah, it can go. I mean, with Malbec especially, it's a really understated for how long well-made sort of luxury Malbecs will age and age and age, because they've got tannin, acid, and color, and those three things are going to just give you aging potential for eons.
So you mentioned the disobedient stepchild.
Yes.
Is that it? So, I mean, one would think if Carmenere would have a place at the table in a blend like this and still be a Bordeaux.
I would have no
style.
problem with that. Yeah, there is not a ton of Carmenere planted in Washington State. And then of that, I think, I know that there are better places to plant Carmenere that we've never even touched. So I think that it's not so much that the jury is still out on Carmenere. I think Washington Carmenere is great. There's not a lot of it,
Interesting.
and there are a lot more places we could be planting it that we haven't so far.
Well, the Washington wine evolution is not done yet. It's still evolving.
Yeah.
And there is good Carmenere being grown in Washington for sure.
So this is 55 Cab Franc, 18 Petit Verdot, 18 Cab Sauv, and 9 Malbec.
Mhm.
Merlot
Those are the
doesn't even get in on this.
Not on this one. Yeah.
Does sometimes the Silent Ode have Merlot in it?
No, actually, we don't harvest Merlot.
Okay,
Yep.
gotcha. So this is, and let's talk about your harvest then. Are these your vines or are these vines that you have leased?
Yeah, so we work with 6 different vineyards. And I like that piece because you get access to these different microclimates. So like we work with Connerly Vineyard for both our Chardonnay and our Camp Franc, which is a little bit of a cooler site. So you get those notes to it that I think are very helpful. And then we work with some windier sites, Southwind and Stone Tree, and then also Summit View for Malbec, which I really like. Same with Cabernet, Southwind Cabernet coming out of the Walla Walla. So it's fun to sort of have these different zones for different things.
I'm just listening to all this and nodding. I just keep nodding because it's like you don't have to necessarily work the vineyard because or do they give you full reign on those vines?
I mean, it's sort of both in the sense. I will say I'm a terrible vineyard manager. I really am. It's not what I was put on this earth for.
No, but you'll go pick the grapes and check for the bricks and all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You'll do that.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So I really like working with vineyards where I have total confidence that the vineyard manager and owner is an absolute expert and perfectionist. Managing a vineyard and making wine are different in the sense that whoever's managing the vineyard, whether it's owned by the same company as the winery or not, it's almost never the same human
Right.
because it's a whole different
Well,
skill set.
It's like making bread or managing the wheat.
Yeah, that's
So,
exactly right. That's
yeah.
exactly right. So whoever's managing that vineyard, they're dealing with mold and mildew management, they're dealing with pest management, they're dealing with irrigation, leaf stripping, cluster thinning, you name it. And then whoever's making the wine, it's a different building entirely. You're indoors, you're blending, you're dealing with forklifts and heat and fermentations and, you know, oak and all that.
If we were to ask you, what's more important, the vineyard manager or the winemaker, you would definitely say, well, the winemaker, because you're a winemaker.
No, I don't have that much self-importance, actually. No, I think vineyard managers are, I mean, like, you can't, the bread analogy is a very good one, but you can't make a good salad if you're starting with bad tomatoes, right? I mean, if your ingredients are bad, then
then
you're
whatever
done.
you make is gonna be bad.
Yeah.
I forgot to show the wine. Here we are.
So that's a black and white label also, and on the website, all your pictures are black and white, and on your Instagram, all your pictures are also black and white.
Yeah.
So that's branding, good branding.
Thank you.
Well, and it's anyone who anyone who's done any photography at any level, there's just an element of black and white that you can't get with color. I don't even know how to explain it, but it's got a depth that's just different.
It
than all-
simplifies what you're seeing.
Yeah, it really does. But it's beautiful. There we go. It's beautiful. Our social web wine word of the week this week is sturdy tannins.
Sturdy tannins. Huh?
Yes. I wanted to use sturdy tannins because this has those.
Oh, yeah.
But how do we describe sturdy tannins for those who don't know what sturdy tannins are?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So for this one, the Silent Ode, you're going to get the tannin structure really from the Petit Verdot and the Malbec more than anything else. To me, sturdy tannins indicate that there is a robust level of tannins in terms of amount of tannins, but that they're not bitter. So all too often you can get tannins from really one of three places. You're getting them from the skins, the seeds, or the stems. And if you pick too early, especially the stems and the seeds are going to be bitter.
Yeah.
So tannins are also found in walnuts, and they're found when you oversteep black tea.
Yes,
Right?
that's why I tried.
And so if you think about those two different things, walnuts are not, they can be bitter, but generally the walnuts you're going to buy at the grocery store are not. Whereas if you oversteep black tea, that can be very bitter, right? So those are both tannins, but one's bitter, one's not. So when I hear the phrase sturdy tannins, to me, it indicates a lot of tannin structure. So you're not dealing with a Pinot Noir, you're dealing with something like a Petit Verdot or a Malbec or a Cabernet, but that they aren't bitter. Because I think if you've got bitter tannins, the sturdy doesn't matter, right? You've got bitter tannins, game over. Like that's the discussion now.
All right, Shelley, I'll stop squeezing the tea bags into the water.
See? He's always like, well, we're gonna squeeze it out. No.
And you just supported what she said, and now I will go home with my tail between my legs, and the next time I'll just do the sun tea out there for just a day, and I'll just put those into the compost bucket without squeezing those in.
There you go.
I still liked it, but I probably have no taste sophistication. Oh man, I'm getting beat up on this. Okay, yes.
Rolling right along.
Yeah. Well, when you say all right, it implies.
Are we
you
gonna
have a
talk
question.
about wines we enjoyed this week, or are we gonna go to our next one?
Well, I think that we probably should take one more break and then go to our next wine.
Okay.
Welcome back to Wine Time Fridays with Squeaky Shelley and Ashley Trout of Brook Bull Cellars out of Walla Walla. We have just tasted her Chardonnay, 2022 Chardonnay, and the Silent Ode, which, if I remember correctly, is 55 Cab Franc, 18 Petit Verdot. And if I did the quick math, isn't the rest is Malbec?
Nope, you forgot one.
I forgot.
Cab, 18
Oh.
cab
Oh,
and 9 Malbec.
and 9 Malbec. There we go. And it was fantastic. Now we're going to get on to the Reserve Malbec, which this will be a huge treat. Let's see, you guys have still got wine in your glass.
Is
But-
that right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Oh, Shelley. Shelley. Okay. So while you're pouring, I had a question about your wine club, and I also want to find out about Vital Winery, because it seems like you have got, you like to give back,
I do.
and that's pretty cool. Why don't we talk a little bit about, well, let's talk about Vital Winery first. Oh, we should taste this, toast this up so we can at least taste. Hashtag cheersing. Can you tell what a digital marketer is?
We can't do that on Threads, though. There are no hashtags on Threads.
Yet. Oh, that's very rich.
Yes.
Oh, that's very good.
It's delicious.
Okay. There we are. On the YouTube video, I will put a little description of it as well. So let's talk a little bit about Vital Winery. That's a little bit about you giving back.
Yeah, so Vital Wines is a nonprofit winery whose mission is to improve equity in access to healthcare for vineyard workers and their families.
That's awesome. What prompted you? I mean, it sounds like a stupid question, but I guess what prompted you to actually take that step to do that?
And make a
rather,
whole separate.
yeah, to make a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what prompted me was humanity.
Right. That's why I said it was a silly question.
Yeah,
Silly question,
no,
but you know.
But specifically, I grew up in a bilingual, bicultural household, and my brother and I would do the translating for our surrogate grandmother, and at the post office or the bank, it was fine, no problem. But when you go to the hospital, it's really crappy, right? It's humiliating for the grandparent who has to divulge these embarrassing body parts that aren't working the right way in front of the grandkids that they are in charge
To
of
translate.
and responsible for, and
Yeah.
they want those kids to know that those kids are in good hands, and yet now they're suddenly very vulnerable.
Right.
And then the kids want to get it right because kids aren't stupid, and they understand how important this moment is,
Right.
but it's medical jargon and they're 6.
Yeah.
So it's just not a situation you want to put people in, and yet we have an $8 billion statewide annual wine industry in Washington state that on occasion rests on the backs of people whose basic needs
Yeah.
aren't being met.
Right.
And you need to go fix that. We need to go fix that.
Nice. And so how is that process of helping to fix that? Because I don't think you just flip the switch and it's voila, it's done. It's going to be a process. So how is that process working towards fixing that?
Yeah, we're doing it really imperfectly. So we're sort of building the plane while we're flying it,
Mhm.
but I think perfection is the enemy of progress in a
Thank you.
situation like this. So we're figuring it out as we go along, and what that means is we have a lot of small programs.
Mhm.
Like right now, we're doing free prescription eye exams and free prescription eyeglasses for vineyard workers and their children, because you can't climb yourself out of poverty if you can't see the whiteboard. And
Working through challenges is certainly something that many people have been forced to be good at. But I mean, at some point, you need the bare level, to even think that you're going to have success
That's
working
right.
through those challenges.
that's right.
So,
That's
yeah.
right. So that's an example of one of our small programs. And then really our huge program that we're trying to franchise throughout all of the Washington State wine growing appellations is to implement in each one a community health advocate. So in Walla Walla, our community health advocate is an amazing lady, Maria Remington. And what that means is Maria goes into the vineyards and she talks to the crews. And the reason this is important is that means the crew member doesn't need to afford gas to go anywhere. They don't have any question about whether the clinic that they're heading to is in English or in Spanish, or whether they're going to need to fill out paperwork.
Sure.
There are so many, or what it's going to cost, right? Is it reduced? Is it full price? Is it free? I don't know. How long is the appointment going to take? I mean, if we think about the last time we walked into a doctor's office, we're all well-educated people who speak English, and we can't answer most of those questions. And so to think, you know, if you're an ag, not only is your boss, but nature is your boss on top of that. That's a lot of layers that you're not in charge of in terms of your own time. So these are important questions to have answered, right? Like if I have XYZ problem, which clinic do I go to? And what is that going to look like?
Right.
And so you have a lot of clinics that are free or reduced. You have a lot of hospitals that are offering free programs for certain things. But if you don't have that marketing and you don't have that line of communication,
it's not going to help.
and you don't have that trust, you're not going to step foot in the door. And it doesn't matter how many clinics are out there, they're not going to be fully utilized.
So Vital Winery feeds that program.
That's really our big program in conjunction with, we've got a lot of grant funding that's helping us do that. And then also the Auction of Washington Wines has been a huge partner in funding this sort of franchise model for getting community health advocates in all of these sort of health care deserts. Yeah.
Washington.
So I've not really heard of a nonprofit winery before. Do you know of any others?
Yeah, there
One
are a
Hope?
couple. One Hope is one of them. It is a little bit tricky. I mean, there aren't many. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's a completely different model. The nonprofit model is a different model. And so the fact that many people take a large sum of money and make it into a small sum of money by starting a winery, it goes backwards. Like the small fortune out of a large fortune, right? But now you're talking about a nonprofit, which is already a highly competitive industry to begin with. Marco Gonzalez, pitcher for the Mariners, and his wife are involved in a wine project that is also a nonprofit. We are going to have them on. We're going to get them on. He's still hurt. I would get them on now if I could, because he's not playing. But I mean, there are these projects out there that will attract a different type of consumer, wouldn't they?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And if people want to help, how can they do that?
Good question. Yeah, you can donate, just cold hard cash. Go for it. Donate cash on the website. You could do recurring donations monthly or a one-time donation, especially around tax season at the end of the year when you kind of know what's up. You can buy wines, and then you can also join the wine club, and you can certainly visit us in the tasting room in downtown Walla Walla.
So your tasting room encompasses that project as well?
No,
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 completely
the
separate thing.
IRS would be very mad at me if I stuck a for-profit winery and a non-profit winery
Gotcha.
under the same roof. So Vital has a tasting room downtown
Okay.
Walla Walla, and then Brook and Bull's tasting room is on the south side of Walla Walla.
IRS needs to just lighten up. They just need to freaking
Well, we
lighten
have to
up.
separate things.
Whatever. I think they need to look in the mirror. So I don't want to get in trouble with the IRS, so we love them. You know.
Notice how I stayed silent.
Yes. I did. So
Right,
Shelley,
we haven't talked about this wine yet.
no, no, we have not. And mine's gone. It's the Reserve Malbec. Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
So yes, let's talk about that. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I love making Malbec. It's my favorite. It's my favorite grape to work with. It just it just hands you everything on a silver platter. So the metaphor I like to use is sometimes you buy a house and you need to redo like the knob and tube wiring and the insulation and the foundation. Like none of those things are fun,
No.
right? But it's gotta
Roof,
happen.
new trusses, yeah.
Right, all that stuff. And then other times you buy a house and you just like repaint the bedroom color, right? Which is way more fun. Malbec is like
That
the
house.
repaint. Yeah, Malbec's like that house because it hands you the bones. It hands you a really sturdy skeleton of a wine. It's going to hand you color, tannins, acid. So then
Nice.
all you're dealing with when you go into the vineyard to decide your pick date is really like, is it giving me these nuanced layers of taste?
Right,
And if the answer is no, you don't pick it. If the answer is yes, you pick it, but all the other things are there.
interesting.
Yeah,
Nice.
Complete antithesis of like a Pinot Noir.
exactly.
Okay, gotcha,
Yep.
which is, or even like a Petite Syrah.
Yeah.
Isn't a Petite
I think
Syrah?
Grenache is kind of hard too for
Yeah.
that reason. Yeah.
But that, I mean, how fun is that? And then to make make a wine of this depth. This is reserve. So what makes this a reserve Malbec?
Yeah, what's interesting is it's not actually all of our best barrels. That to me does not always make
I
an
was gonna say,
interesting wine.
sure.
Sometimes you need a little paprika in there, right? Sometimes you need a little spice or zing of some kind, some
I like
extra
that.
toast or some extra this, that, and the other. So it really is, it is one of the first wines we blend coming out of the gates every year so that we know we've made exactly the wine we want to make. It gets first pick,
Yeah.
right? First draft.
There you go.
But that doesn't necessarily mean it's just the prettiest barrels,
Yeah,
right? So for me, the Reserve Malbec is sort of a little bit,
It's like the
classic.
best recipe.
yeah. So it's sort of the classy, classic, rich, luscious, depth-driven Malbec, whereas our everyday Malbec, I kind of allow it to have a little bit more of that marmalade chewiness, voluptuousness.
drink now.
Drink now,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's the big difference.
But I don't get on this. I mean, the tannins on this, I'm not getting a lot. This seems like this.
Well, they're
I'm
just
sure
well
you can.
integrated.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're Malbec can be a very tannic beast if you
Mhm.
don't get enough oxygen on it early on in the
Yeah.
primary fermentation.
This is really delicious. We're gonna take one last break. And when we come back, we are gonna talk about your wine club. And then we're gonna talk about some of the wines we've had this week and what's coming up in the future. Oh. So, welcome back to Wine Time Fridays, and we're here with Ashley Trout. And not once have I said Ashley
Ashley
Bull or Brooke.
Any of those?
Any of those. I've actually called her by her given name. And so that's good. You know, at the very beginning, I asked you, Ashley, how you came up with your name, and you said, oh, the winery. And I was like, well, I know your parents gave you your name, so that makes a good sense. Although the
It's just double checking.
yeah. So
What's
we
the
have,
difference?
well, no, nothing is given these days.
Peekaboo Street. She picked her own name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people have picked their own name.
Okay, I'm so lost right now. I just, yeah. Can we, it's not unusual, by the way. It's unusual that it took this long for me to get lost. So, can we talk about your Brook Bull Wine Club? Because we have been pushing the notion to our listeners that pick a wine club or two or three, whether it's a wine bar, a bottle shop, or a winery, you are going to get things that you typically aren't going to get from that wine bar, bottle
From the
shop, or
wine,
winery. Yeah. And so talk a little bit about your wine club.
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, that's certainly true. We make a lot of wines that are not specifically wine club only, but they turn into that, which is to say, we don't make, like the Cab Franc that sold out in 10 hours, our Rosé, same story, the Petit Verdot is gonna be the same story this year, the Cabernet out of Walla Walla is gonna be the same story.
Wow.
We just sell out so quickly that the only way to guarantee that you'll get some is to be on the wine club.
Yeah.
And so that's one piece of it, but we do a lot of fun stuff. We do a lot of wine club pickup parties and have a good time. This year, we're going to offer first dibs to wine club members for a Chile and Argentina trip that we're taking the last week of February, which is going to be so fun.
That's not where I thought you were going when you said Chile. Because I was like, Chile and Malbec would be great.
Yeah.
Oh, Chile, and okay, got it. It's the
No,
country.
we're going.
You're going.
We are not messing around. We are going.
Excellent.
So yeah, we have a lot of fun events and then wine club only wines plus the discounts that you get, and then just sort of
come in and taste.
you can come in and taste. Yeah, tasting fees are waived for you and some friends when you're a club member. So
Yeah.
there are all sorts of fun perks, and yeah, we have a good old time.
You know, and I have not heard one winery or bottle shop or wine bar that says we don't have fun with our wine club members. It is a fun thing.
It is. Yeah.
And you are getting perks along with it, and usually some wines that you're not going to find
Mhm.
very often.
And on yours, you have a choice of 6 or 12.
Yeah,
And then you ship in spring
in
and
the spring and the fall. That way we don't get stuck with weather problems, trying to ship in bad
Heat.
weather, right? So you can get 6 in the spring and 6 in the fall, or 12 and 12, totally up to you.
Yep, I love
and
that.
I love how you have on your website, your opt-in is sign up for the allocation list.
Yeah,
That's pretty good.
yeah. And then the allocation list doesn't commit you to any wines. You do hear about it before the general public hears about it. And that's how so much of this stuff does finally just get sold out in hours. But with that one, you've got to like eyes on the prize. You got to be reading those emails, reading those text messages, or it's gone.
Well,
Right.
Yeah.
and back to having that list,
Mhm.
the
Email
list,
lists are important.
they're important because you're getting the first shot at these things. And so, and then to your point, read the email, right?
Yeah.
Don't let it go to junk. Ashley, you do a fantastic job of getting out and getting your wines out. Couple 3 weeks ago, you were at one of our sponsors, Studio 107. You were up at Beverly's. You did a wine pairing dinner at the Culinary Stone, again, one of our sponsors, and I believe at Possibilities. 4 places in a week. You do a lot of these things, don't you?
Well,
It seems like you do anyway, because we see your wines more than we should for a 3,500 case winery.
you really hit the nail on the head, which
Yeah.
is to say that we are only distributed in 4 states.
Okay,
So there are 50, so there are 46 states in this nation that don't ever see any of our wines.
now they could buy off their website.
They could.
Okay,
Yeah, but you're never gonna see them on the shelf. I love visiting Coeur d'Alene. I particularly like the distributors that we have here. They're just nice people. They're
They
great to
are.
work with. And
Who's the
so
distributor here?
we have Idaho Wine Merchants.
Okay,
And so, life is short. I think it's so important to spend time where you want to be spending it. So
Amen.
this past week, I came up here with my son, and we did some paddle boarding and some river rafting,
Yeah.
and made a summer trip out of it and snuck in these little winemaker dinners. I mean, it's not hard lifting if you do it the right way.
it isn't. It's, you're sharing your craft, which you're very passionate about, and it shows. It not only shows with how you've presented, but it shows in the glass.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, these are fantastic wines. Highly recommend you search them out. I know they're on shelves here in Coeur d'Alene. Well, for sure, Tom at Studio 107 has it. I know that Ethan down at Culinary Stone, until he's gone, has it. And Possibilities does for sure also, because you're going to be you tasted there. So I wanted to just say some of the wines we enjoyed this week. Shelley's voice is going. I can have you do it, Shelley, if you'd like.
Okay, It's not just because there are bad things to pronounce. They look pretty good. So, Lake Hole 41, Estate Merlot, Cave B, Cabernet Franc. We need to go back to Cave B.
We should.
Cave B is amazing.
It is
And
amazing.
stay in their little yurts.
Yeah, we love the yurts.
Roblar Chardonnay, which we picked up at the grocery outlet. La Playa Rosé and Waterbrook Chardonnay.
Yep. Not a full list, but kind of. And then we've got coming up National Pinot Noir Day on the 18th of this month, which is a week from today. Gosh, how fast is that going? National Red Wine Day on the 28th, International Cabernet Sauvignon Day on the 30th, National Chianti Day on the 1st of September. We have a Chianti that my daughter sent all the way from Italy that we can't get in the States, that we have in our cellar.
Yeah.
We might have to open that up. I think we should. It'd be great if we do it with them too. International Grenache Day on the 15th. We have Chez Frechette with Frechette Wines. I think she's going, well, I'm pretty sure she's going to be a guest, but it'll probably be through Zoom. That's coming up at the end of the month. And we're working on another Wine is Like Music episode with a local keyboard player. Real quick, these musicians taste their wines and they write music on the spot
That's
for what
pretty
they're
fun.
tasting. It's a lot of fun.
They play what they hear or feel. In
Yeah.
Yeah, not a skill set I have.
Well, I'm a piano player and Shelley's like, well, why don't you just do it? And I'm like, yeah, we want a good one. So we've had a jazz saxophone player and we've had our very own Todd Hornby here from Coeur d'Alene, who wrote the intro music of our podcast. He also did an episode. So a big thanks to Coeur d'Alene Fresh, Eternal Wine, Naked Wines. Next week, Wines of Kiona. I said it right. Kiona. I always want to say Kiona. Any last comments from either of you two? See, I said either of you two this time, so I don't put you on the spot, Shelley.
I don't have any last comments,
Okay.
except thank you for visiting with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. This was super fun.
It is fun. And with a little bit of knowledge, which we gave again, not we, but Ashley did. With a little bit of knowledge, wine becomes a lot less overwhelming. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next week with Kiona Wines and have an awesome weekend.
Thank you for spending part of your day to wind down with Shelley and Phil. Remember, you can listen to any episode of the Wine Time Fridays podcast by visiting winetimefridays.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And join us on our Wine Time Fridays Facebook page, Instagram, or on Twitter, which is @VintageTweets, for daily conversation. Until next week, here's our toast to you, to health, wealth, abundance, gratitude, peace on earth, and of course, romance.